Hmm. Hey everyone, welcome to our energy reading and drop in for the beginning of August and this hugely volatile energy that's ripping through right now. We've got a lot of things in retrograde, a supermoon in Aquarius coming up, two supermoons this month, and it's very new starts, karmic resetting, and death and rebirth feeling. I'm Hawken. You're one of your hosts, your Norse shaman and healer, and I'll pass it over to Raven.
Hi, everybody. I'm Raven. I'm your other host. I am your eclectic Slavic Norse shamana.
Mm.
And I'm really excited to get into this energy reading. We have a lot of information to share with you guys, but definitely stick around because it's all really important to know if you're going through your healing journey right now. And we're being supported so many different directions through healing work right now. So I invite you to just stick around and listen because it's juicy. We got some juicy stuff.
Mm. Yeah. It's funny when we say supported because um it reminds me of a girl who I know, who we both know, who had this very frustrating question that she asked in our community group recently. She had this post where she was saying, it feels like my guides aren't even with me lately. I'm just struggling. I'm not even seeing any signs lately. And I reminded her of just how many things are in retrograde right now, on the big end being Venus and Chiron, and the fact that we've got this full moon coming up. And I just said, you are so surrounded by your guides. The fact that you aren't seeing a whole lot of signs right now means that they are trusting you to trust your intuition instead of needing to show you every 333 and 1111 and every bird showing up or flying near your window just for you to know you're on the right path. Yes, one of the beautiful things about living a spiritual life is that we do see lots of signs, but know that you're never alone. And the times that you think that you are alone, I know this sounds cheesy, but it reminds me of an old proverb that when you thought you only saw one set of footprints, it was then that they were carrying you. So with that, the big energy too that overlaps over all of the planetary stuff that I'll let Raven get into. We're still going through we're really going through Hagalaz now at this point, which is so like rebirth, but it's not just a gentle rebirth. It's like the hailstorm or the forest fire that makes way for beautiful new life to grow. It's like when you go, it's like when you go, how come it feels like everything is falling apart just before it really gets better? Because just when you think you're on the verge of a breakdown, that's when you're actually on the verge of a breakthrough, but you have to go through that breakdown, that utter feeling of falling apart, because that's what death and rebirth cycles are all about. It's not just going to be this gentle thing that's like, oh yes, I'm starting a brand new life now, here we go. Like, a lot of this, and I was speaking to this in our shadow work class with some of our students last week, and I was saying, we were talking about awakening and ancestors and what that has to do with your journey, and I related it to Kundalini awakenings and ego death. That a lot of people, when they start going through their awakening and seeking and asking, like, what is ego death all about? And this whole idea that you have to fully die before you can be reborn. It's not a literal death. It's like, you ever gotten that the death card in a reading? It's like, you're not going to die. Nobody around you is going to die, but everything has to die for you to actually live the life that you're meant to live. And and people will go back to a reader or a healer or something and go, what did you do to me? Or what is going on? It feels like since I've seen you, or since I went through this big traumatic life event, or it's usually connected to some kind of big event, right? That sparks your awakening, or something that really makes you start seeking and wanting to live a different life. All of a sudden, your friends start changing, your job falls apart, you get fired, or you lose your job, or or whatever, it's your house, or whatever you currently know is your wonderful life just falls away. And it's because everything that no longer serves you is aligning out as you're changing the TV channel of your life. Yeah, everything is going to look different. You're shifting realities. So the universe is going to work for you, or it's literally going to work for you to take all these things away. And you feel sometimes like when you're in this period where there's that old adage, when one door closes, another one opens, but maybe the other door isn't open yet. And you're standing in the middle of the hallway going, where's the door? It's this beautiful cocoon feeling. And I love that I just used the word cocoon, because Hagalaz is also like, this is also considered the seed of cosmic creation. And so, there's a lot of elements at play right now where, if you're living within the universe and these cosmic energies, it's like when a caterpillar gets into a cocoon, it has to go into complete goop before it comes out as that butterfly. And I've used that reference before, and I always love the symmetry of a butterfly because it is so accurate. It goes through the biggest death and rebirth cycle of almost any animal in the animal kingdom. And just know that you are absolutely so supported, as Raven said, even in these moments where you think your whole life is falling apart. There's something that Bashar said recently that I heard about ego death that really stands out to me, that it's not, as I said, it's not about literal death, but it is the understanding that When you go through this, as you are awakening, everything you are has to die. And then when you go through that, you realize all that is left is you, is truly you, the you that you were meant to be. And this year being the year of the seeker feels so this is such a perfect time, and I can speak to that a little bit more after she shares some of her tidbits about the astrology stuff that's going on. But we are in the year of the seeker, and it's in Leo season, and it's so powerful.
So I was called, as you were speaking, to grab this deck that I don't use much anymore. And to be honest, the name of the deck escapes me at the moment. But anyway, so on the back of this deck, it says, "Open the doors to dreaming," right? And as you're talking, I was like, okay, I guess we're supposed to get a card from this, because like it kept pulling me. The card. Okay, first of all, it says, "Be your own planet, high up in space, but rooted in yourself." First of all, how perfect is that? And second of all, the image,
Wow.
right? Especially with us going through our shadow work course right now, like that's just beautiful. So
I think we got more to say about that too.
yeah, yeah. So something I wanted to like flow off of, because everything you said was so perfect, and like it really feels to me also too like that tower card energy of that complete and utter destruction and upheaval of what you know and of your kingdom, so that you can begin to rebuild that foundation, that stronger foundation. And something that like I heard in my mind as you were speaking was, when we resist change, we perpetuate our own suffering. That came through loud. I was like, I had to write it down. I was like, okay, I don't want to lose this. But going into our astrological information, so there's a few things I wanted to touch on, only because I felt like they were all really important to speak on together like a team. So backtracking just a little bit, on July 17th, we had our lunar nodes change signs. So now this is one of our biggest cosmic events of this year. And the reason that is because the reason that is because every 18 months, I don't know. Yes. Okay. So every 18 months, our lunar nodes shift signs and determine what signs we will experience in our eclipses in. So now the lunar nodes are mathematical points calculated between the sun and the moon. And in astrology, they're connected to our fate and our destiny, our north and south nodes. And our south nodes are really connected with like our past and our past life experiences, where our north node is kind of where we're going and the lessons to step up to the plate too. Now, the north node falls in Aries, which indicates as a collective where we're putting our attention. So with the north node in Aries, we should be focusing on moving forward, being independent, connecting to our fiery nature, and being our own unique trailblazers. And with the south node in Libra, this indicates for us as a collective what we need to build upon, but also shift away from in order to keep growing. So this means, with it being in Libra, we're being called to honor the partnerships that we've created. We're being honored, or we're being asked how we have fought for justice in our lives, and how we have learned to cooperate. But it's also time to take this knowledge and shift towards more Aries themes. So it remains to be seen how the lunar nodes will manifest their magic and lessons, but on each eclipse, we will get a little bit closer to unpacking the insights and the lessons that come. So these are going to be very active for a while. Now, going next is July 22nd, we hit Venus retrograde. Now, this is another big cosmic event for this year because Venus stations retrograde in the sign of Leo. And this happens until September 3rd. Now, with Venus being the planet of love, relationships, beauty, money, and the things that we value, with it stationing retrograde, all of these topics rise up to the surface to be looked at and to be dealt with. So while there might be some hard work here, we need to remember that Venus in Leo is very fun and playful and social. So hopefully we can feel a little bit more lighthearted as we navigate through these things that might come up. With Leo being a very heart-centered placement, we can also be almost certain that all of us will go through some sort of heart awakening during this time. In order to awaken and open our hearts to a deeper level, something will have to be cleansed and removed. We may have to make some hard decisions, or perhaps we find ourselves moving through some painful realizations, especially when it comes to our relationships, external and internal, and how we choose to operate within those relationships. Now, with Venus in retrograde, there is a very big Lilith energy moving around the collective right now. And what I mean by this is Lilith is telling us that we need to know our worth. We need to stand our ground. We need to stand up for ourselves. We need to take no shit. We do not need to conform. We need to set bulletproof boundaries. She's telling us that our rage is sacred, to be unapologetic as fuck, like be unapologetic, and anybody who doesn't mess with you, don't mess with them. This makes room for people that will come and will want to collab and work with you. And also, the very last thing that she's teaching us through this Venus retrograde is that we are all multidimensional human beings with a full spectrum of human emotions. So to accept ourselves exactly how we are, and then watch how fast we turn our pain into power from that. Now, Chiron has stationed retrograde, and it stationed retrograde in Aries on July 23rd. Now, with the lunar nodes changing, with the new moon we just went through in Cancer, and the sun moving to Leo with Venus retrograde, all of this happening just days before Chiron shifted into retrograde, this is known as the healer's journey, because this is when Chiron, the asteroid that's known as the wounded healer, journeys into its retrograde. So all of these energies will intensify the healing work that Chiron brings up for us, allowing some of our most painful heartbreaks to be channeled into something new. Chiron will remain in retrograde until December 26th. And by this point, we're likely to have experienced some deeper wisdom, compassion, and understanding from whatever wounds came up that were trying to teach us. Now, Chiron is known as the wounded healer. He's also a centaur. And the story of Chiron can help us to understand the energy he radiates. Now, the myth goes that Chiron was abandoned at birth and left to fend for himself. Chiron was unwanted and unloved, but through this painful wound of abandonment and difficult upbringing, that he was able to rise up and turn his wounds into powerful portals of healing. It was Chiron's wounds that paved the way for his role as a powerful healer, teacher, psychic, and philosopher. Now, with Chiron was able to take his pains and allow them to guide him in a direction of power. He knew his wounds would never leave him, but he allowed them to become these portals of wisdom and compassion and learning. And this is why he's referred to as the wounded healer, and one that I resonate with very deeply. We all possess the same powers as Chiron, which is the beauty of this. inside each and every one of us is the ability to turn our wounds and pain into sources of power. Just like the poet Rumi says, the wound is where the light enters you.
Your mess is your mission.
Yes. So Chiron is orbiting between Saturn and Uranus. The position of Chiron between these two planets is significant because it brings understanding to the energy. So with Saturn, Saturn is a very grounded, a very rooted energy, whereas Uranus is considered a planet of higher vibration. And it can also bring about awakenings and the rise of Kundalini energy. This is the second time we're hearing this on this today. Now, Chiron can act as a bridge between those two states of being, between the rooted energy and the higher vibration, and is somewhat referred to as the rainbow bridge. The rainbow bridge signifies the link between one state of consciousness to the next. And this idea is further amplified if we look towards Egyptian astrology, because in Egyptian astrology, Chiron goes by another name. He goes by Anpu or Anubis, the god of the afterlife and lost souls. Now, many of the myths and legends used in Western astrology can be traced back to Egyptian and Babylonian astrology, and Anubis can be seen as Chiron's counterpart. So Anubis's job is to welcome the newly dead to the underworld, right? And to guide them through the transition to the afterlife. So it takes a special soul to be given such a position, and no doubt it was Anubis's own pain and suffering that allowed him to develop the compassion, discernment, and loyalty to walk souls through such a journey. As Chiron or Anubis travels retrograde, we can access our own wounds to reflect on that, on how to use them as a source of power and a source of healing. This energy is not about obtaining a state of perfection through healing, because perfectionism is not relatable. But rather it is about bringing that acknowledgement and acceptance to our wounds in a way that allows us to access the wisdom that they're bringing. And so Chiron doesn't want us to heal because it will make us better. It wants us to learn how to source these wounds as powerful portals of wisdom, knowledge, and power. So by extracting this information, we can step into a greater, fuller potential. The level of healing work is about transcendence rather than to fix ourselves. So in order to be worthy, because we already are worthy, regardless of the wounds that live within us. So this energy is especially amplified as Chiron is currently in the sign of Aries, which is the headstrong ram. So with Chiron and Aries, we can even more find ourselves supported in the strength and confidence and courage to arise when we meet our wounds, and look at them not as pain, but as potentials for healing and wisdom. With Chiron also in Aries, it reminds us that it is far more beneficial to allow our wounds to inspire, motivate, and offer strength, rather than to think of them as something that slows us down or makes us inferior in any way. So definitely that speech of this isn't happening to me, but it's happening for me. Wounds are painful, and some wounds cut so deep that they never truly leave us, but this is okay. We don't have to be neatly wrapped packages in order to lead the best life possible. We can use this retrograde energy not to sugarcoat our wounds, but to recognize that just like Chiron and Anubis, our own suffering very often can lead to the path of our destiny. Use this retrograde energy to reflect on what your wounds have taught you. Sit with your wounds to get to know them. See if you can release any judgments and just sit with any pain that they bring up. As you get comfortable with this, see if you can reflect on what these wounds have taught you and how they have shaped you and what wisdom they have for you. And I want to note with this, because we do understand how heavy some things can get. So I wanted to note too that, it was proven by a Harvard student that the human brain only holds onto an emotion for 90 seconds. So if you can sit with this pain and allow yourself to breathe and just navigate it and listen to it for that 90 seconds, understanding that by the time that 90 seconds is done, you can let it go on its way, and you've heard what it has to teach you or has to share with you.
Right. Anything else is your attachment to it.
Exactly. And there's a lot of power just in the awareness of that. And last but not least, we have the Aquarius super full moon that's coming up on August 1st. Now, as a lunar cycle is about 29.5 days, this means that we're set for another full moon that comes on August 30th, which is a blue moon in the sign of Pisces. So both of these full moons will be super moons, which means they'll be closer to the earth and we will feel the effects more strongly.
Mm-hmm.
So while the Pisces super blue moon deserves its own video, having two full super moons in the same month indicates a strong pull to release, detox, let go, and walk away from all that is no longer resonating with us. By the end of August, we are likely to find ourselves left with some empty spaces, whether that be physically, emotionally, or both. So this means that this super full moon is a very potent portal for healing on top of all the other energies that are with it, right? Mm-hmm. So this is the perfect entrance point to this journey of creating space. It holds a sweet healing vibration, guiding us to gently and lovingly prepare to let go of all the stuff that's heavy. We are likely to feel strong healing vibrations under this full moon, especially when it comes to matters of the heart. This heart healing energy will be further amplified as Venus, the planet of love, will be deep in her retrograde journey at this time. So we will find painful emotions, heartbreaks, grief, and disappointments trying to surface. So we may feel extra emotional and sensitive. And while it may be intense, especially leading up to the full moon, we are likely to feel a sense of relief once it's passed. Now, it being in the sign of the water bearer, don't let that mistake you. Aquarius is an air sign, which means that energy will be concentrated around our heads. It may be hard for us to get out of our heads. We might find our thoughts swirling, and we might find ourselves going back and forth over things. Now, while it can be challenging to stay out of this headspace, it may be necessary for us to pause and just listen to what the thoughts have to say. Writing things down on paper, talking things through with a friend, or simply taking the time to have a conversation with our mental chatter may bring some relief. And this is also where I'll plug our private Facebook community. You can always find us in Facebook groups with the same logo as our YouTube and our other platforms. You're welcome there. There's nothing but unbridled support. Mm-hmm. So as the water bearer, Aquarius holds the energy or holds the gifts of being able to take the mental chatter, the emotions, the psychic depths, the psychic debris, the water, that are circling and transmuting them before returning them back to the earth. In this transmutation process, this psychic debris is returned to a 0 point state, to a state of neutrality. When this state is achieved, the mind can think clearly, we feel more aligned, and the right answers can be found more easily. So Aquarius energy can help us to see intellectually, logically, but also from a state of neutrality so that we can make the best decisions moving forward. And of course, this process is not always as nice and neat as it sounds, but know that you have healing energies on your side. And know that this full moon will be supporting your journey, especially if there's something that you need to let go of in your life. And with this full moon, there is also all of these vibrations are enhanced by an asteroid called Chariklo. Now, Chariklo is connected with healing, but she deals with the realm of spirit medicine. Chariklo guides us to find the right medicine, whether that is a walk in the park, a supplement, a meditation practice, an herbal tea, whatever it is for us specifically. Chariklo is very connected with herbs, healing foods, crystals and the elements of nature. She encourages us to remember that the healing power of our own body, and that we can support our life force energy by turning to the gifts of Mother Nature. Use your intention to guide you to what feels the most nourishing for you, and then use that to restore and replenish your body. Recharging your mind, body, and soul under this full moon may very well come from spending time in nature and choosing medicinal foods and herbs. Now, under this full moon, we're also going to be walking towards the Lion's Gate, the 8-8 portal. So we're going to find ourselves really feeling a rise of that healing energy too. So everything we've talked about is so potent and focused on that healing. The Lion's Gate, which we'll talk about further when it gets closer, but to touch on it, is just a portal that honors the rising of Sirius, our spiritual sun. And as our spiritual sun rises, it is reborn, and we too can feel the rebirth of our own spirit energy under this portal. So with all of this strong lunar energy circling and the portal peaking just days after the full moon, it's a powerful time to clear and reset your systems. It's a good time to set those boundaries, look at your relationship with yourself, look at all of the places where you might be misplacing your energy. You need to call it back to yourself and just use this energy to do a nice cleanse, a detox, and to flush any negative thinking out of your being. Just like the Aquarian water bearer, come back to your zero state point, and from there, everything else will feel easier. And that's all that I have for the astrology. But like I said, it was a lot, but it was all really juicy and like I feel like need to know.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a lot, right? And it's so all centered around healing. And I think it's important to note that even if you're not intentionally doing your shadow work, those elements are happening anyway, because those energies are so intense that on the one hand, it's such a coincidence, but not, because we did it intentionally, and we're in the middle of our shadow work class right now for the middle of the year. But on the other hand, I think it's so divinely aligned that Leo is the sun in the astrology and in the zodiac, and so the sun is at home in Leo, and we're in Leo season, but Venus is in Leo, and there's so much Leo energy going on. And when we think about, and while you were speaking, this really made me think a lot about how we are in a 7-year, which I briefly touched on when I was first starting to speak. But to me, I think it's so aligned that the 7 is the year of the seeker, and it's all things seeking what's good for you, seeking knowledge, seeking whatever aligns with you on your path. Or for the kind of people that follow us and watch these videos, it's really being a spiritual seeker. And with Leo, that is so very much seeking what's right for you, what's good for you. And especially Venus being in retrograde, it's very much calling to question your worthiness of love, respect, and authentic relationships and friendships, and also seeking, and also your relationship with yourself. And that card that you pulled was so appropriate, because as I thought about this idea of like be your own planet and like revolve at your own pace, and there's a lot of themes within that. If you are the type of person like we are to take one sentence on a card and just like imagine there's a parfait of and layers of onions within that. Um, I'm a huge Shrek fan. Okay, I can't reference an onion without also saying a parfait. Also, really working through our inner child right now is huge. And I was going to talk about the energy centers that are really flowing right now in another sentence, but that just came out. We're huge in the chakra, heart chakra, okay, people. This idea of following your own path. Raven and I were talking with us before we came on to do this video, and the thing that really stands out in regards to seeking and following your own path, and also how that relates to healing, is there's been a lot of ancestor work and us guiding other people through their ancestor work and ancestor connections lately, and what that has to do with are spiritual seekers and pagans and people who are finding their own practice, and something that we don't hear often enough in regards to people's pagan practice, or whether they resonate more with the craft or simply being pagan, whatever that looks like for you, really. But it's the idea that you get to make it your own, especially in 2023, when we are all, so many of us are the diaspora, reconnecting lost souls from all over the earth with ancestries from everywhere. And nobody, and when that, in that regard, you're this you're this beautiful bundle of ancestral wisdom and knowledge and memory from the 5 to 30,000 ancestors that it took to make you. And whether it's their ancestor memory that lives in your blood and your bones, or the ones that have chosen to be your guides in this life, they're influencing you, they're surrounding you, and they're cheering you on to resonate with different things that you're going to resonate with in your path. And some of those things may be Egyptian, even though you're American or Canadian and you don't even know you have any Egyptian lineage. So what the hell do you, what the hell kind of right do you have to associate with Thoth? Or you don't even really, or you're not Asian, so like, why are you practicing chakras and yoga? Or like, we can ask ourselves or judge other people on those things till we're blue in the face. But the reality is, we are in an age where I don't like the way traditionalists and old age spiritualists look down their nose at the term new age, because even though I didn't introduce myself as eclectic the way Raven did, we're all so eclectic nowadays, and it's whatever resonates with you in your own path. And so you get to be your own compass and follow your own truth through listening to your intuition and listening to your guides and whatever is telling you that this resonates with me and that resonates with me. And I'll share a little bit about, just for a minute, about how that relates to me in my own practice. I might have introduced myself as a Norse pagan and a Norse shaman, and that's my main practice, yes. And I have a lot of Scandinavian roots, and I'm following. I do rune work, as you guys know. I share runes with our astrology reading in our energy reading every month, and I do runic yoga, and I share those videos. And I, at the same time, have really revolved my own personal medicine wheel around Norse practices. But I've also let my Reiki teaching that I was drawn to and my knowledge of the chakras influence my understanding of the nine realms, and I let it blend together into this shamanic Reiki and an understanding of the nine chakras that I personally connect to, because there's so many other cultures out there that observe chakras, and it's not just the Hindu seven. And so the point is, you get to make your own practice your own. You get to, there's a beautiful piece of gratitude, isn't it? You don't have to do anything anyway. You get to live your life and make your practice the way it resonates with you. And so whatever feels right to you, then that's for you.
Yeah, I want to speak to that too. Like just another example is many people who know me already know this. Those of you who don't, you're about to learn something. But I tend to be that bridge between people and their ancestors, reconnecting them, or people and like a certain deity or guide is like trying to get through to them, and either they don't see it or whatever. And I'm the middleman. And that also, before I was able to help other people with it, it was a personal journey where I had, my own squad of deities who I work with, but like individually, one by one, they would come to me, and I would work with them, and we would build a relationship. Now, I had this really difficult time where I struggled with imposter syndrome because I had the goddess Kali Ma come to me, and I was, first of all, admittedly a little bit afraid, because there is a lot of misinformation about her out there that really demonizes her. And so I recognized that that was part of my work with her coming to me, was helping speak to the demonization of goddesses and all of that. But what it was a really beautiful validation for me was I accepted her in. I heard her message. I started studying how to honor her and work with her. And then it became more soul led. But I felt this urge. This was like 3 years ago now. I made like a 3-part video on like who Kali Ma is, her history, and how to work with her. And I had a man from India message me, and he was like, I literally cannot believe that someone who grew up outside of our culture got it so right. He was like, I have no doubt that she came to you because everything you said. He was like, I could feel it. And we're so on point. And he even took that video and showed it to the younger girls in his village, because they are all very disconnected from their spirituality. And he was like, look, and so that to me was a real eye opener, because it helped me with that imposter syndrome. It's like, it doesn't matter like what I look like or where I was born. When these energies want to work with you, they're going to let you know. And especially with your ancestors, like being someone who's from a mixed native background and a mixed Slavic background, the biggest ancestors that first came to me were my native side. They were from my native side. And again, there was a lot of imposter syndrome with that, but through soul-led following them and facing that fear and just following them anyway, I was able to reconnect with my literal ancestral tribe. And I was like, there were so many more pathways that opened up for me. And the tribe, and even other like tribes that aren't mine but that associate with us, they're all of this mindset of like, it doesn't matter what you look like because we understand what our history is like and all this other stuff. So if you if you're white presenting, but the ancestors are speaking to and through you, that's all we need to know. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter the percentage in your blood. Like, you know, you already signed up for this work, and somewhere along the lines too, your ancestors, you all kind of made a pact together. So like in this lifetime, in this iteration, we are being given the opportunity to take our soul gifts and the lessons that we find and the wisdom that we find through healing our ancestors and turning it into this like soul evolutionary medicine that literally creates so much change in our lives, in our future lives, for our descendants, all of that. So don't let anyone tell you that you can't blend this practice and this practice and this practice when you know in your heart and soul that your ancestors are pushing for you, your spirit guides are pushing for you, and that's where you were led.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because nobody else is going to walk your path for you. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there who are going to be like, oh, you know, like, well, where's your credentials? Like, who did you study under? Like, blah, 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 blah. But we're in such a great awakening now that many of us, our paths are soul led. And like, I know for myself, I can relate, and I know Hawken can relate that, you know, spirit has brought mentors in and out of our lives to kind of give us a way show, but the rest of it is all learning through our life experience and learning through what our soul and what spirit guides us through. So don't let people get you caught up on certifications, who taught you, what book did you get that out of? When you know, you know. And that's it.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Oh, well, that's a lot of that. I know that's a lot of information, and this has been a little bit of a long one today, but there's a lot of stuff going on. And I feel like despite coming into the 8th month, it feels like the peak of this year's energy, if that makes sense. It's very much so when we look at the wheel of the year or the hero's journey, it's right at the bottom where there is so much transformation going on that you're about to come out of this month with heightened intuition, realization of where you're going, and a very much like she was saying about Lilith, like this is who the fuck I am kind of energy. Letting go of all of the hurts and wounds and things that have come up. They've come up so that you can observe them and say, I don't need to hold on to you anymore, and let them go. And like a lot of people shy away from shadow work and healing because it's so daunting. Well, that's why we have chosen to act as guides, because it can be daunting and it can be hard and it can feel yucky and mucky and heavy, but there is so much light on the other side of that. There is recognizing, just like you were saying about Chiron, recognizing your mission through all of that mess, how to make your wounds into your power instead of attaching to our stories of suffering and making that our whole life. Like, well, this happened to me, so that's why I am the way I am. Like, no, it happened to you so that you could make a life out of it. That's it. And so I think that's my closing words on this, on all this energy right now, is step away from your stories of suffering. Practice non-suffering through all of this healing work and through everything you're going through, and understand that you get to see it, process it, realize what you don't need to hold on to anymore, and let it go. And then hopefully learn how to talk about the things that you've gone through, not in a way that projects to people that you still need everyone to know about it because it still hurts so much. But if you do share your stories, share them in a kind of way that helps others. Share them in a kind of way that gives inspiration, that makes people see how sacred you are in everything you've gone through. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, just adding to that, is just let this let this phase that we are in and moving through, let this be a phase of you showing up in a way of radical self-love and self-advocacy. And from that place, let everything else either you hold on to or you don't. But from that place of radical self-love and self-advocacy, because ultimately the self-advocacy is self-love. And another thing too is just remember that your past and your trauma does not define who you are, and that you are the writer of your own story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So much so much truth, And when I remember when I've read when Ram Dass spoke about suffering, it was always the things that you are made to go through to grow through. Like it's all part of just understanding this cosmic play that we signed up for. So don't get too attached to the bumpy roads and the bumps in the road, because there's always the light at the end of the tunnel, and there's a greater lesson for why you go through what you're going through, or else you just end up repeating it next time around. If you can't see why you went through it and let it go, and then come out on the other side healing through it, then it's going to be something that you end up repeating anyway. So I love you, and I hope that you have a wonderful, groundbreaking breakthrough through this. It's going to be an intense, tumultuous month, but if you're the kind of person who really works with these energies and makes your life your own, then you'll get through it. You'll get through it. Let's just finish with a nice deep breath and a little 30-second tone, just to really vibrate through our heart space into all of that radical self-love. May you walk in love and stay sacred. We'll do another video by Lionsgate anyway to really touch on all of that intense lion energy and likely do a big meditation for that. Have a great weekend and we'll speak to you soon.